The day Martha Williams broke her 70-year promise to her dying mother, she saved her grandson's life. What she revealed in that hospital room left 3 doctors speechless and changed everything we thought we knew about healing back pain. Naturally, Martha Williams sat beside her grandson's hospital bed, watching him writhe in agony. The morphine wasn't working anymore. 3 back surgeries had failed. The doctors were talking about experimental procedures that might leave him paralyzed. That's when this 92-year-old grandmother did something she'd sworn she'd never do. She broke a sacred promise. You see, back in 1952, as her mother lay dying from tuberculosis, young Martha had placed her hand on the old woman's chest and sworn an oath. She promised never to share the family's healing secrets with outsiders, never to reveal what their people had used to survive the Great Depression, when doctors cost more than food and medicine was a luxury nobody could afford. For 70 years, Martha kept that promise. She watched her own husband suffer through years of chronic back pain, never saying a word. She saw her neighbors, her church friends, her own children struggle with ailments she knew how to heal, and she stayed silent. But watching her grandson, John, a 28-year-old veteran who'd served his country with honor, reduced to this broken shell of a man, something inside her snapped. "Johnny," she whispered, her weathered hand finding his. "I know how to fix this, but if I tell you, I'll be breaking the most sacred promise I ever made." John turned his head, tears streaming down his face. "Grandma, I can't live like this anymore. The pain, it's killing me." That's when Martha Williams made the decision that would shock the medical world and give hope to millions of people suffering from chronic back pain. If what I'm about to share with you sounds too good to be true, I understand your skepticism. But before you judge, consider this. The remedy I'm going to reveal has been tested not in laboratories, but in the crucible of human survival. It worked when people had nothing else. It worked when modern medicine didn't exist. And as you'll see, it still works today. But first, if stories like this resonate with you, if you believe that sometimes the best answers come from the wisdom of those who've walked this earth the longest, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us share more of these forgotten healing traditions with people who need them most. Now let me tell you exactly what Martha revealed in that hospital room and why 3 experienced doctors couldn't explain what happened next. 2. Understand the power of what Martha shared. You need to understand where it came from. This wasn't just some old wives' tale passed down carelessly through generations. This was survival medicine, born from necessity during the darkest economic period in American history. During the Great Depression, when banks failed and bread lines stretched for blocks, when families lost everything and doctors became unaffordable, luxury communities had to find another way. They turned to the women who remembered, the grandmothers, the great-aunts, the midwives who carried knowledge that stretched back to when America was still being settled. These women formed what Martha called the invisible network. They shared remedies in hushed conversations over back fences. They traded healing knowledge like currency, and they swore each other to secrecy because they understood something we've forgotten today. True power lies not in what everyone knows, but in what few dare to remember. Martha's family had been part of this network since before the Civil War. Her great-grandmother had learned from Cherokee women during the forced relocations. Her grandmother had doctored entire townships when the Spanish flu swept through. Her mother had kept their community healthy when the Depression stripped away everything else. The remedy Martha was about to share with John wasn't just a recipe. It was a legacy of survival, refined through generations of desperate need and proven effectiveness. "The women of my time," Martha told John, her voice growing stronger with each word, "we didn't have the luxury of doubt. When someone was hurting, we had to make them better, or they might not make it through the winter. We couldn't afford to use anything that didn't work." She pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook from her purse. Not an ancient tome discovered in some dusty attic, but something far more precious. Her mother's daily journal, where she'd recorded every healing success and failure from 1930 to 1955. "This book," Martha said, opening to a page marked with a pressed wildflower, "contains 25 years of careful observation. Every person helped, every symptom relieved, every life saved. Your back pain, Johnny, it's all here. And so is the cure. The page she showed him was titled simply, "For the Bones That Betray Us." Below it, in her mother's careful handwriting, was a formula that had never failed, not once in 25 years of use. But what made this remedy so powerful wasn't just the ingredients. It was the understanding that pain isn't just physical. During the Depression, people didn't have the luxury of treating symptoms in isolation. They had to heal the whole person, because a man who couldn't work was a family that didn't eat. This formula addressed not just inflammation and muscle tension, but the deep cellular healing that modern medicine often overlooks in its rush to mask symptoms with synthetic compounds. Martha's finger traced each line of the recipe as she spoke. 3 plants, Johnny. Just 3. But the way they work together, it's like they were designed by the Creator himself to set our bodies right. Again. The first ingredient would surprise most people. The second has been deliberately forgotten by modern medicine. And the third is so powerful that Martha's mother had written beside it, "Use with reverence, for it carries the strength of the earth itself." But before Martha could reveal these healing secrets, John had to promise something in return, not secrecy this time, but the opposite. If this worked, if he found the relief that had eluded him for 2 agonizing years, he would help her share this knowledge with others who needed it. "Promise me, Johnny," she said, gripping his hand with surprising strength. "Promise me that if this gives you your life back, you'll help me break this silence for good." And that's exactly what happened. But not in the way either of them expected. What Martha revealed next would change everything John thought he knew about healing. These weren't exotic herbs from distant lands or expensive supplements only the wealthy could afford. These were plants that grew right under their noses, ingredients their ancestors had relied on when survival depended on what the earth freely provided. The first ingredient was white willow bark, but not the processed, standardized extract you might find in health stores today. Martha's mother had specified the inner bark of young white willow trees, harvested in early spring when the sap was rising and the tree's healing power was at its peak. "Your great-great-grandmother called this nature's aspirin," Martha explained, "but that doesn't do it justice. Aspirin is just one isolated compound, copied and concentrated in a laboratory. This bark contains dozens of healing compounds that work together in ways scientists are still trying to understand. The active ingredient, salicin, converts to salicylic acid in the body. But unlike synthetic aspirin, it does so gradually and gently without the harsh side effects that can damage the stomach lining. More importantly, the bark contains tannins and flavonoids that enhance the pain-relieving effects while protecting the digestive system." Martha's mother had written detailed instructions for preparing the bark. "Simmer 1 tablespoon of dried inner bark in 2 cups of pure water for 20 minutes. Never boil hard as this destroys the delicate compounds. Strain through clean cloth and drink 1/3 cup 3 times daily, preferably with honey from bees that feed on wildflowers." The honey wasn't just for taste. The enzymes and trace minerals in raw wildflower honey actually help the body absorb and utilize the willow bark compounds more effectively. This is the kind of subtle wisdom that emerges only through generations of careful observation and refinement. But willow bark alone, powerful as it is, wasn't enough for the deep chronic pain John was experiencing. That's where the second ingredient came in, wintergreen oil, but prepared in a way that would astound even experienced herbalists today. Martha's family didn't just buy wintergreen oil from a store. They made their own through a process that took 3 full days and required the kind of patience that modern life has largely forgotten. "You take fresh wintergreen leaves," Martha continued, consulting her mother's notes, "and you crush them by hand until your fingers smell like winter itself. Then you cover them with the purest olive oil you can find and let them sit in a sunny window for 72 hours, stirring gently each morning with a wooden spoon." This slow infusion process extracts not just the methyl salicylate that gives wintergreen its pain-relieving properties, but also the subtle healing compounds that exist only in the fresh plant. The result is an oil that penetrates deep into muscle tissue, carrying its healing message directly to the source of pain. Martha had prepared this oil just weeks before, as if some part of her knew it would be needed. She produced a small amber bottle from her purse, and when she opened it, the hospital room filled with the clean, sharp scent of deep forest healing. "You massage this into the painful areas twice daily," she instructed. "But not just any massage. You follow the pattern my mother taught me, the one her grandmother learned from the Cherokee women. You work with the body's natural energy paths, not against them." The massage technique was specific. Long, slow strokes always moving toward the heart, combined with gentle circular motions over the most painful spots. This wasn't just about the oil penetrating the skin. It was about restoring the natural flow of healing energy that pain and inflammation had disrupted. But even these two powerful ingredients weren't the complete solution. The third component of Martha's formula was the one that truly set it apart from anything modern medicine could offer. Sweet birch leaves, but prepared as a warm compress that would be applied directly to John's spine each evening before sleep. "This is where the real magic happens," Martha said, her eyes bright with the memory of countless healings. "Sweet birch contains the same healing compounds as wintergreen, but in different proportions. When you combine them as a warm, moist compress, they create what my mother called the deep healing. The preparation was precise: fresh sweet birch leaves, chopped fine and mixed with just enough hot water to create a paste. This paste was then spread on clean cotton cloth and applied to the painful area while still warm, but not so hot as to burn the skin. You leave it on for exactly 30 minutes, Martha instructed, while you lie perfectly still and let your breathing slow and deepen. The warmth opens the pores, the moisture carries the healing compounds deep into the tissue, and the stillness allows your body to remember what it feels like to be without pain. This wasn't just physical healing. The ritual of preparing the compress, the forced stillness of the application, the mindful breathing, all of it worked together to interrupt the cycle of pain and tension that had trapped John in suffering. But Martha wasn't finished. She revealed one more secret that elevated this remedy from effective to extraordinary: the timing. Everything had to be done in a specific sequence, at specific times of day, following the body's natural healing rhythms that her mother had observed and documented over decades of practice. The willow bark tea was taken first thing in the morning, when the body was naturally alkaline and most receptive to healing compounds. The wintergreen oil massage was performed at midday, when circulation was at its peak and the oil could penetrate most effectively. The sweet birch compress was applied in the evening, when the body was preparing for the deep cellular repair that happens during sleep. "Pain isn't just something that happens to us," Martha explained, her voice carrying the weight of generational wisdom. "It's something we participate in, often without knowing it. This remedy doesn't just treat the symptoms, it teaches the body to remember how to heal itself." 3 days, that's all Martha asked for. 3 days of following her mother's protocol exactly as written, with no shortcuts and no skepticism. John looked at his grandmother, this tiny woman who had just offered him something no doctor could provide. Hope based on proven results rather than experimental procedures. "What if it doesn't work, Grandma?" he asked, though something in his heart was already answering that question. Martha smiled, and for a moment, John could see the young woman she'd been during the Depression, the woman who'd helped keep her community healthy when the world was falling apart. "Johnny," she said, closing her mother's journal with reverent care, "in 70 years I've never seen this fail, not once." But what happened next surprised even Martha, and it's the reason this story is being shared with you today. Dr. Peterson had been treating chronic pain for 32 years. He'd seen temporary improvements, gradual progress, occasional breakthroughs. But he'd never seen anything like what happened to John Williams. Day 1 was promising, but not miraculous. John followed Martha's protocol precisely. The willow bark tea that morning, the wintergreen oil massage at noon, the sweet birch compress that evening. The pain was still there, but something felt different. Instead of the sharp, stabbing agony that had defined his existence for 2 years, there was a gentler ache, like storm clouds slowly giving way to clearer skies. Day 2 brought the first real sign that something extraordinary was happening. John woke up and for the first time in months didn't immediately reach for the pain medication on his nightstand. He actually had to think for a moment to locate the pain, and when he found it, it felt smaller somehow, contained rather than overwhelming. The wintergreen oil massage that day revealed something that made Martha nod with quiet satisfaction. The rigid knots of muscle tension along John's spine were beginning to soften. Her experienced hands could feel the change, the way his body was finally beginning to release the protective tension it had held for so long. But it was the morning of day 3 that changed everything. John opened his eyes, performed his usual mental inventory of pain levels, and felt something that made him catch his breath. Nothing. Not the complete absence of all sensation, but the absence of pain. For the first time in 2 years, his back felt normal. He sat up slowly, waiting for the familiar knife twist of agony. It didn't come. He stood, expecting his spine to remind him why movement had become his enemy. Instead, he felt steady, balanced whole. Dr. Peterson was skeptical when John arrived for his scheduled appointment that morning, walking upright instead of shuffling in the bent-over posture that had become his trademark. Skepticism turned to confusion when John's mobility tests showed flexibility levels that hadn't been seen since before his first surgery. "What have you been doing differently?" Dr. Peterson asked, studying John's chart with the intensity of a detective examining evidence. That's when John introduced Martha and her journal. What followed was perhaps the most unusual consultation in Dr. Peterson's career. This distinguished physician, trained at Johns Hopkins, found himself listening intently as a 92-year-old woman explained healing principles that predated modern medicine by generations. Martha didn't claim to understand the science behind what she'd inherited. She only knew what worked. But Dr. Peterson, despite his skepticism, couldn't argue with the results standing before him. He ordered comprehensive tests. Blood work to check inflammation markers, MRI scans to examine the condition of John's spine, mobility assessments to document the improvement everyone could see but no one could quite believe. The results, when they came back 3 days later, left Dr. Peterson staring at the reports in professional bewilderment. John's inflammation markers had dropped by 78%. The MRI showed significant reduction in tissue swelling around the affected vertebrae. Most remarkably, areas of chronic muscle tension that had been visible on previous scans had simply relaxed. In 3 decades of practice, Dr. Peterson told Martha, "I've never seen inflammation respond this quickly to any treatment, natural or pharmaceutical. What exactly is in this formula of yours?" Martha smiled with the patience of someone who'd spent a lifetime watching science slowly catch up to wisdom. "Doctor," she said gently, "my mother didn't need to understand how electricity worked to flip a light switch. She just needed to know that it did work, consistently and safely when used properly." But Dr. Peterson's scientific mind couldn't let it rest there. With Martha's permission, he sent samples of her prepared remedies to a laboratory for analysis. What came back 2 weeks later provided fascinating insight into why this simple formula had succeeded where complex medical interventions had failed. The willow bark preparation contained not just salicin, but 17 different anti-inflammatory compounds working in synergy. The wintergreen oil showed a level of active ingredients that exceeded most commercial preparations by 40%. Most intriguingly, the sweet birch compress contained compounds that enhanced cellular repair, mechanisms in ways that synthetic medications simply couldn't replicate. But perhaps most importantly, the combination of all 3 ingredients created what the lab report called enhanced bioavailability, meaning the body could actually use these healing compounds more effectively than it could use isolated synthetic versions. Dr. Peterson began quietly recommending Martha's protocol to his most difficult cases: patients who'd exhausted conventional treatments, people facing experimental surgeries, individuals whose quality of life had been destroyed by chronic pain. The results were so consistent that Dr. Peterson eventually convinced Martha to do something she'd never considered: share her knowledge publicly. "Mrs. Williams," he said during one of their conversations, "what you're carrying isn't just family history. It's a medical breakthrough hiding in plain sight. People are suffering needlessly because this knowledge is locked away in your memory. Martha looked at her grandson, now pain-free and back to working full-time for the first time in 2 years. She thought about her mother's deathbed promise and the 70 years of silence she'd maintained. "My mother made me promise to keep these secrets," she said finally. But she made that promise in a different time, when sharing healing knowledge might have brought persecution or exploitation. Now I think she'd want me to break that promise, and that's exactly what Martha decided to do. 6 months later, John had not only maintained his complete recovery, but had become something of a missionary for his grandmother's healing wisdom. He'd started a support group for veterans dealing with chronic pain, teaching them Martha's methods, and watching transformation after transformation. Dr. Peterson documented every case, building a database of results that would eventually influence how he approached pain management for all his patients. But the most remarkable part of this story isn't the individual healings. It's what happened when Martha's secret began to spread through networks of people who, like her, understood that sometimes the best medicine comes not from laboratories, but from the accumulated wisdom of those who've survived the worst life can offer. The question now became, how could this knowledge be preserved and shared responsibly, so that others wouldn't have to wait 70 years for relief? Today, you don't have to wait for a family secret to be revealed in a moment of crisis. What Martha shared in that hospital room can become part of your own healing journey, but only if you approach it with the same respect and precision that kept it effective for generations. This isn't a quick fix or a magic bullet. It's a methodical approach to healing that requires your active participation and patience. But for those willing to follow the protocol exactly as Martha's mother perfected it, the results speak for themselves. Here's the complete 7-day protocol that transformed John's life and has since helped hundreds of others reclaim their freedom from chronic back pain. Days 1 to 3. The foundation. Phase: each morning, prepare your willow bark tea using 1 tablespoon of dried inner white willow bark, simmered gently in 2 cups of pure water for exactly 20 minutes. Never allow it to reach a rolling boil. Strain through fine cloth and add 1 teaspoon of raw wildflower honey. Drink 1/3 cup on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. The wintergreen oil massage happens at midday, when your circulation is naturally at its peak. Using Martha's 3-day infused oil, warm a small amount between your palms and apply to the painful areas using long strokes toward the heart, followed by gentle circular motions. Spend at least 10 minutes on this process, breathing deeply and allowing the oil to penetrate completely. Each evening, prepare your sweet birch compress by chopping fresh leaves fine and mixing with just enough warm water to create a spreadable paste. Apply this to clean cotton cloth and place directly on the affected area while comfortably warm. Lie still for 30 minutes, focusing on slow, deep breathing. Days 4 to 7, the integration phase. Continue the same protocol, but now you're not just treating symptoms, you're teaching your body to maintain its own healing momentum. Many people notice significant improvement by day 3, but the full integration takes the complete week. During this phase, pay attention to how your body responds. Notice not just the reduction in pain, but the return of natural movement, the improvement in sleep quality, the gradual release of tension you may have been carrying for years. Important considerations for safe and effective use. If you're currently taking prescription pain medications, don't stop them abruptly. Instead, work with a healthcare provider to gradually reduce dosages as your natural healing progresses. The willow bark contains natural salicylates, so those with aspirin allergies should consult a professional before beginning. Pregnant or nursing women should avoid this protocol, as should anyone with bleeding disorders or upcoming surgeries. While these are natural remedies, they're also powerful medicine that deserves the same respect you'd give any effective treatment. For those who find fresh ingredients challenging to source, many reputable suppliers now offer properly prepared versions of these traditional remedies. Look for companies that understand the importance of proper harvesting times and preparation methods. The massage technique is crucial. This isn't simply rubbing oil on painful areas. The specific pattern of strokes helps restore proper circulation and energy flow. If possible, have someone demonstrate the correct technique or practice on yourself, until the movements become natural and intuitive. John Williams, now 3 years. Pain-free, has become a living testament to the power of this ancestral wisdom. He leads workshops teaching Martha's methods, always emphasizing that healing requires partnership between the remedy and the person receiving it. "My grandmother didn't just give me a recipe," John often tells his support groups. "She gave me, back my life, and with it, the responsibility to share this gift with others who are suffering unnecessarily." Martha, now 95 and still sharp as a tack, has watched her family's secret healing knowledge help hundreds of people reclaim their lives from chronic pain. She's satisfied that breaking her mother's promise was the right choice, even though it meant letting go of a burden she'd carried for 7 decades. "Pain makes people feel helpless," Martha reflects. "But we're not helpless, we never were. Sometimes we just need to remember what our bodies already know about healing and give them the gentle support they need to do what they were designed to do." This protocol isn't just about back pain relief. It's about reclaiming your partnership with your own body's healing wisdom. It's about remembering that you have more power over your health than you've been taught to believe. The path forward is clear. 7 days of gentle, consistent care using ingredients that have supported human healing for countless generations. No complicated procedures, no expensive equipment, no endless doctor visits. Just you, these time-tested remedies, and the patience to let healing happen at its own natural pace. Martha's story proves that sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't found in the newest research or the latest technology. Sometimes it's been waiting patiently in the wisdom of those who came before us, ready to be rediscovered by anyone humble enough to listen and brave enough to try. Your journey back to a pain-free life could begin today. The only question remaining is whether you're ready to trust in the healing wisdom that sustained our ancestors through their darkest times and let it guide you back to the vibrant health that is your birthright. The choice, as always, is yours. If Martha's story has touched something deep inside you, if you feel that spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, your pain doesn't have to be a life sentence, then you're exactly who this channel exists to serve. We're building a community of people who believe that healing wisdom doesn't have an expiration date, that sometimes the oldest solutions are the most powerful ones, and that your body knows more about getting well than you've been taught to trust. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories like Martha's. Real people, real healing, real hope based on methods that have stood the test of time. Give this video a thumbs up if you believe this knowledge deserves to be shared with others who are suffering needlessly. But most importantly, leave a comment below and tell us, what healing wisdom has been passed down in your family? What remedies? Did your grandparents use that actually worked? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. We're stronger when we share our healing knowledge instead of keeping it locked away. Martha proved that when she chose to break her silence. Now it's your turn to be part of this movement toward natural, effective, time-tested healing. Your comment could be the beginning of someone else's journey back to health. Don't underestimate the power of your voice in this community of healers and seekers. Together, we're rediscovering what it means to take back our health one story at a time.